It's the day after Christmas. So I asked one of my friends in the building, I said, hey, are you working today? And she said, no, I'm not. They said they're not making us work. I said, oh, okay, do you want to go to lunch together? She said, sure. So we go to lunch, and as I'm walking out, my case manager, she said, hey, I was looking for you. I said, oh, what's going on? And I'm thinking it's for the program. And she said, you're not going to believe this, but we're getting your plane ticket right now. I said, are you serious? And she said, yeah, we cannot hold you. You got immediate release. And so at that point, like, everybody in the camp all the women are just like screaming and just hugging and cheering, because it gave them hope that compassionate release actually works.
What's going on, guys? RDAP Dan here, Federal Prison Time Consulting. Hope you guys are all having an amazing week so far. And this is a video that we've all been waiting for. We finally have our awesome client, Mary Tess, who's joining us live. Also, as you can see, we have the amazing Tom Root joining us live, sentenced to a white-collar crime, also a drug conspiracy. During her 42-month sentence, Tom Root got involved to see what we could do to help her with compassionate release. Mary Tess should not have been released from prison till 2022, and she was actually released the day after Christmas, December 26, 2019. We're going to let her tell her story. So welcome, Mary Tess. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm good. Thank you for inviting me. So I was sentenced to a 42-month sentence. Initially, I had gone to Carswell, Texas, which is a medical facility. I didn't look deep into the actual facility. So come to find out, I chose that place because I seen that there was RDAP in that facility. And RDAP over there is only for Spanish and dual diagnose, which I didn't qualify for. So I had to figure out how I was gonna get out of there to get to another place that had RDAP. RDAP was gonna possibly cut 18 months off of my sentence. So at that point, I was trying to find out, go to the law library, find out how I can get to another facility. My points were a little bit too high to go to a camp at that point. So my fiance, James, he decided to start reaching out and looking up how we can get some help. And that's when he decided to call up Dan. When I went in, my mom she had custody of my twins. And so when my mom had a stroke, that's when James hired you and Tom to do my compassionate release.
Compassionate release is kind of a misnomer. It's a term the BOP dreamed up. There is nothing in the statute called compassionate release. It's called a sentence reduction motion. And it's been around for 30 years, ever since the Sentence Reform Act in 1984. There are two standards. You've got to show extraordinary and compelling reasons for the sentence reduction. Up until December of 2018, you couldn't apply for compassionate release. The only person, the only entity who could make the motion in district court was the director of the Bureau of Prisons. It's a classic fox guarding the hen house. Asking the BOP to decide whether you ought to be able to leave prison. It was against his self-interest. As a result, very few people got it. But the BOP came up with 4 standards for compassionate release. 1, you're dying. 2, you're sick and you're getting sicker and it's hard to manage you. 3, you're very old. And 4, you got someone in the family who is a spouse, sons, daughters, and they've lost their caregiver. There was another category, and that was, quote, any other reason the director finds to be extraordinary and compelling. It was kind of a catch-all. In 30-some years of it, I've only known of that happening once, and that was an inmate who worked in Unicor, and his boss one day fell off the forklift with a massive heart attack and lay there clinically dead, and the guy gave him CPR until the squad got there and saved his life. And that was extraordinary and compelling, and he got compassionate release for that. But that was the exception. By and large, the greatest number of compassionate releases, and great number is kind of a misnomer because there were very few, but the majority went to people who were dying. Second largest number were people who were very ill and getting worse. I worked with a guy who had MS, and when he went in, he wheeled around in his wheelchair. By the time he got compassionate release, he couldn't move the chair, he couldn't sign his name, and the BOP let him go. But those were the big reasons. The change that Mary Tess mentioned was that in the First Step Act, the BOP was no longer the only show in town. You still have to ask the warden. But if the warden doesn't do anything in 30 days, or if the warden denies it, you can go to the sentencing court yourself. Well, they still pretty much follow those principal reasons. You're dying, you're really sick, family member needs help, you're really old. But beyond that, courts have done some crazy things. It essentially gives the judge unbridled discretion to do whatever the judge wants to do. And I know of at least one case where the judge granted compassionate release because the guy had multiple gun charges up to like 105 years because of a vagary in the law. They changed the law, but it's not retroactive. The judge said, that's not fair. And so that was extraordinary, and he let the guy out.
So in Mary Tess's situation, and you and I have spoken to a number of potential individuals over the last several days where some of them, we don't feel comfortable taking their situation on because of there's just not enough going on. What was it in Mary Tess's situation that made you comfortable to want to assist and take her on as a client? And also, after he answers that, I would love to hear from Mary Tess and James as to, now that you're out, you can speak clearly and freely. Did you honestly think you were going to get compassionate release, or was there a part of you that was like, am I just wasting my money? Answer that after Tom explains to us why he felt Mary Tess was a good client to bring on with actual reasons.
Hey, first reason she was a very good candidate for this is because she had the evidence to support fitting into one of those categories. Her mother had been taking care of her sons, of Mary Tess's sons. The mother had a stroke and was unable to do it anymore. The boy's father was in Las Vegas, and there's no place as close to Honolulu. So he was 2,000 miles away. There were no other family members who could chip in and step in and take care of the boys and take care of mom. So we had a situation where we could show that family members, more than one, mother and grandma and the two sons, all needed a caregiver, and they didn't have anyone. So that fit pretty nicely. Beyond that, Mary Tess, her offense, well, the one white collar was nothing. As far as the drug count, the drug conspiracy, she was very much a bit player, and it was clear in her sentencing that she had been dragged into this without knowing what was going on, and suddenly was in the middle of it and didn't know what to do. So she was far from a culpable kingpin type of drug dealer. And she had gotten extensions to self-surrender. She got sentenced, and typically you self-surrender in 30, 60, 90 days. The judge kept giving her extensions because of caring for mom and caring for the sons. So the judge seemed to be someone who's going to listen to reason, and had gotten used to the idea that she really had these obligations and she was needed. Finally, when she did get all the extensions, she had a perfect record. She had not violated her post-trial supervision in any way. When she went into the BOP, she had taken programs and she hadn't gotten in trouble. So, these things there are legal standards, but they're also political realities. And political reality is we did not have a bomb-throwing judge, and she had clearly made a good impression as a defendant in front of this judge. So all of that suggested that this was worthwhile attempt.
Right before Christmas, I give up already. It's not going to happen.
I told him I was just going to leave it in God's hands.
Yeah.
And when it's time for me to go home, it's time for me to go home. So in the beginning of this, Tom did the paperwork. I've seen people do the remedies, 8, 9, and 10, and it's a very long process. I would highly recommend to just go directly to you and to Tom instead of doing the remedies. When Tom did the paperwork, he put exactly what I needed for my compassionate care. And that's where it becomes tricky when people try to do it themselves. So when he finally got it to the warden approved it right away.
No,
The
after 30
problem,
days, it was
the
after
problem is the warden didn't get the package on time because the case manager had it and had not forwarded it. So that put me in the bracket of they already failed the 30 days. So that's where Tom was able to go directly to the judge. Because even though it goes through the process, if you read the paperwork, in the end, the judge is who makes the final decision. Because even if the warden or the director above the warden is to deny it, that's when you could still go to the judge. And if the judge overrides and gives you immediate release or whatever he wants, or a sentence reduction, the judge is still going to be involved. So there's different routes how you can go with it. But like I said, I would just suggest to go straight to Tom and let him do his wonders, because if it's important for people to get their family members back home in different case scenarios, it's just less of a headache to try to figure it out yourself and go directly to the professionals.
And Tom, when we were going through this, I think you and I are both under the impression that if she did get released, it wasn't going to be a complete release, see you later, go straight, start your probation. We kind of thought she was probably going to go to home confinement and finish out her 85% on home confinement. What do you think caused the judge just to completely terminate the sentence and not even give her home confinement?
I suspect it was because the judge had so much experience with her post-sentence before she went to prison. And I think I'm guessing from everything I read, and I read the sentencing transcripts and all the other pleadings, that the judge figured, I'm never going to see this woman again, at least not as a defendant. And so it's probably a pretty safe bet. The judge may have also considered that putting her on home confinement was going to be very difficult because she had mom to take care of and she had the boys, and that takes a lot of running around, and you've got to coordinate all those times out with your probation officer to, leave the house for a certain period of time, and just more trouble than it's worth. But it's kind of hard to get in the judge's head. Maybe, the judge did grant it on December 24th. It may have been too much eggnog. You don't know.
Just a little bit about December 26th. What's the first thing that went through your mind when you found out?
I thought my case manager was joking. So I get up, and every day, it's the day after Christmas, but because I was in a program, every day I have to be suited and booted by 6:30 in the morning. So I always clean my room, I get suited and booted, then I go to breakfast. And when you're in program, you have to stay in the uniform. If you're not in program, then you could just do a normal day. So they had made it a holiday, but they didn't make it a holiday for our building. We still had to go according to what they said. So I asked one of my friends in the building, I said, hey, are you working today? And she said, no, I'm not. They're not making us work. I said, oh, okay, do you want to go to lunch together? She said, sure. So we go to lunch, and as I'm walking out, my case manager, she said, hey, I was looking for you. I said, oh, what's going on? And I'm thinking it's for the program. And she said, you're not going to believe this, but we're getting your plane ticket right now. I said, are you serious? And she said, yeah, we cannot hold you. You got immediate release. And so at that point, like, everybody in the campus, all the women are just like screaming and just hugging and cheering, because it gave them hope that compassionate release actually works.
When did you self-surrender?
I surrendered August 2018.
So August 2018, and you were released December 26th, 2019.
Correct.
So a year and a few months.
Yeah. As far as the judge knew, we were in front of him about a year after she went in saying, yeah, you know, she's close to getting out. And the judge was confused by that, and asked us to document it. So we did. And I remember when James told me that the judge had sent the request back, I thought, oh boy, I hope we didn't blow that date and put the wrong one in, because we'd lose a lot of credibility, and that would be that. First thing I did was go back and check, and I said, no, we had the right date. That's exactly what it says on the website. So gave it to the judge, and I think the judge shrugged and said, okay, it is what it is. One standard that is not official but has been used in these compassionate releases is how much of your sentence you have done. Now, obviously, someone who's got a 42-month sentence and has been there 2 months is going to have a much tougher time getting compassionate release than someone who's done 30 of the 42. And we were able to argue that she had done more than half her sentence, and the judge was having trouble with that. But when we proved it to him, he was fine.
So, Tom, you and don't be modest. I know you don't like to pat yourself on the shoulder and all that good stuff. But
Sure, we'll pat him.
Yeah, truth be told, Tom, tell us a little bit about your experience and why we all consider you an expert in the industry. How much do you stay on top of the First Step Act? How much are you working on helping inmates from the inside out?
Well, I've been doing it for 30 years. I'd say what really has helped me the most is the newsletter I do. I've done a newsletter now for in the 5th year, 200 some weeks in a row. 7,000 inmates get it every Sunday night. And so I've got to, I must spend about 12 hours a week on it, but I collect everything. And just like a vacuum cleaner, everything that comes out of Washington, everything in the Federal Register. I check for new program statements every week, and you run your traps. And when the First Step Act was being debated in Congress, my wife and I had gone to Boston. Our granddaughters were living out there. And so we're out in Boston for Christmas, and all I'm doing is, as the act passed, Trump signed it the 21st, and on the 22nd, I had something like 250 emails from inmates all asking about the First Step Act. And I sat there all Christmas in Boston answering emails. But every email I answer, I end up getting another facet of the problem that I hadn't looked at before. So, it's the old, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice is the same thing. How I got to where I am now is I've just been reading it for years and doing it for years.
And Tom, what do you think? What are some things that we should leave some people with right now that are going through this situation, getting ready to go? A lot of people think that it's just they're going to go to prison. There's nothing they can do about it. There's nothing that can reduce their sentence. Letters, character letters, personal narratives, prepping for the PSR. Individuals think that doesn't matter because a lot of attorneys will actually tell them that, oh, none of this matters.
Well, one of the great attorney myths is that the judges in just about all cases know what sentence they're going to give when they walk in the courtroom. I've heard that for years. I have come to not believe it because I have seen defendants turn a judge on the allocution. And the allocutions they win on, they've actually prepped and worked on. I mean, it's not speaking from the heart, especially telling the judge what a bum he is and how rotten the prosecutor was. I've seen defendants do that. Not a good idea. But it is an arcane system. These people do it day in and day out. And if you think you're going to walk in and hit a home run when you've never played that game before, you're just not going to. I've seen cases where defendants have shot themselves in the foot in the pre-sentence report interview. I've seen them go in bare bones without letters and letters of support, or worse, sappy letters of support that don't do anything. All of that has a function. There is something I did want to say about Mary Tess's compassionate release that hasn't been said, and that is one thing she really had going for her was James. He was available to, he was ramrodding everything. He was available to take care of getting the doctor's letter. I could send things to him. He got them taken care of right away. You cannot overstate the value of having someone who is dedicated and intelligent and on the ground. He did a great job.
I agree.
Mary Tess, I'm glad to see you home. I'm glad to see you sitting next to this guy because he's been a giant crybaby since you've been gone. So I haven't heard nothing from him. So I know you guys are doing awesome. Thank everybody. I'll see you guys again real soon, guys. I'm RDAP Dan, Federal Prison Time Consulting. People helping people, communities method, one day at a time. Can't wait to see you guys again. Thank you very much. Peace out, everybody.